cases of digital skills framework on citizens and educators and identify elements to be strengthened in a digital skills development for skills training instructors in Malaysia. Before I proceed with the first presenter, please allow me to share her brief background. Ms. Karine Sonigo is a skilled digitalization specialist working at ILO Skills and Employability Branch at the headquarters in Geneva. Her role is to support ILO constituents in the digitalization of their national TVET and skills system, analyzing the impacts of technologies and TVET and skills systems, and providing them with the support they need to engage in their digital transition, to leverage technologies for digital inclusion and to bridge the digital divide for marginalized population. Before joining the ILO, Ms. Karine had extensive international experience in the private sector as a learning and development specialist. She spent 8 years as head of content, working with language learning companies in charge of the design and implementation of online learning programs. She then moved to a more strategic role as a global digital learning manager in the banking and finance sector, defining and supporting the implementation of the digital learning strategy across geographies. Ms. Karine is passionate about skills development and lifelong learning, as well as technologies applied to education, training, and human resources. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Karine Sonigo to share with us the European Digital Competency Frameworks for Citizens and Educators.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everyone, and thank you very much for having me on this seminar today. Let me share my screen.
We can't see your screen yet, Karine. Can you try sharing again?
Yeah. Okay. Can you see it now?
It's coming. Yeah, you can see it now.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So really the idea today is to try to nurture the reflection and decision-making on what this digital talent roadmap should look like and what type of a focus we'd like to give to this. So as you said, and you've introduced, I'd like to give an overview of some of the European frameworks around digital competence to try to give some kind of an inspiration and an idea of what other frameworks around the world look like. So first, let me try to also say and introduce that and again, I won't repeat what all the speakers have already said, but in this rapidly changing economy and society that we are all living in, the skills that are needed are definitely changing in a dynamic manner. And there's a critical need to identify those in-demand set of skills for what I call those hybrid occupations. So you're not only as you know, an employee or as a student focusing on those specific technical skills that are being required for a specific role or occupation or position in a specific company or organization, but you are willing to have also the capacity to develop those core transversal skills, those human skills that are needed across sectors, and also what we call sometimes in a very generic manner digital skills, to be able to live and thrive in the digital economy and to make sure our workforce and individuals are able to remain or be ready and prepared, but remain competitive in the workplace. So there's critically a need to define and describe what we mean by digital skills. And one of the most efficient manner is to do it in a user or learner or employee or individual centric manner. There are a lot of international frameworks that exist and that tend to describe digital skills with basic, intermediate, and advanced, type of levels, without saying, okay, but who is going to use them, or for which specific task are they going to be using them? So that's not, the most effective manner to put or to define digital skills per se. We could either define digital skills for individuals, citizens in the digital society. What do I need, to access administration services, e-services, for example? What do I use to be able to use a mobile application for e-payment, for example? So those type of skills that are needed in the society in general as individuals. What are those digital skills that employees need when they need to be able to be efficient in a digital or hybrid workplace or completely remote workplace? What are those skills that are needed for those specific IT, ICT tech-enabled roles? So that's specific for a specific not only sector, because it's not only the ICT sector, but for any IT professional position in any institution or organization or company. What are those tech-enabled roles? What I call tech-enabled roles is any role, any position, any task that not only requires some technical specific skills, but also more digital skills. And I always take an example, human resources, learning and development specialists and professionals who need to be data literate in a way to be able to, make data-driven decisions in their daily operations and tasks, or marketers who not only need those marketing type of technical skills, but who definitely need to be able to be, use social media or any type of tools that will enable them to be web marketer today. What are those skills that are needed for instructors, educators, trainers, teachers? What are those skills that, education and training institutions need to be developing to be able to thrive in the digital era? What are the skills that entrepreneurs, for example, need specifically in the digital society and economy? And another example would be, what are the skills that job seekers or any person who is transitioning or to the labor market need for job search, for career development, and so on and so forth. So just a quick focus on the complexity of defining, but the necessity to describe properly those digital skills and to align them with the user, the individual, and the context in which they will be using them. So why it is important to use a reference framework? Well, first, to use a common language to be able to identify and describe those key areas of digital competence. It would definitely help policy making, formulating policies that would support this digital competence building, and of course, help planning education and training initiatives to improve the digital competence of those specific targeted groups, whether that be, those vulnerable groups that we were referring to, but also based on specific sectors, occupations, and positions in the economy. Really, the idea is to identify them to be able to have a better approach to the maintenance and the adaptation of curricula and training programs, so they are adapted to the labor market needs, adapt qualification frameworks, occupational standards, and even job descriptions in some of the companies we are talking about. Identify those new sets of knowledge, skills, and attitudes that are being required. Contribute, as you've already mentioned, to the design of continuous professional development pathways for human resources professionals, for learning and development, for trainers, to be able to deliver those new skills. So it's not only being able to deliver the skills that are being required and needed in the labor market, but it's also being able to deliver them in a different manner, so online, blended, etc. And of course, it's critical to be able to support awareness raising on those changing roles and responsibilities. So new roles coming in, new tasks, new teams to be onboarded when it comes to the digital era. Just a quick definition here on how digital competence was defined by a council recommendation on key competencies for lifelong learning. So allow me to read it so everybody is aware. And this is, so digital competence has been defined as one of the key competencies for lifelong learning. So I'm talking about, so I'm entering here in the European framework. And the digital competence involves the confident, critical, and responsible use of and engagement with digital technologies for learning, at work, and for participation in society. It includes information and data literacy, communication and collaboration, media literacy, digital content creation, including programming, safety, including digital well-being and competencies related to cybersecurity, intellectual property related questions, problem solving, and critical thinking. So just to give you a brief overview on what will be the focus here on the European landscape of digital competence frameworks and tools. So as I was saying, it is critical to have a user-centric approach, or a user-centric approach. And so the tools are divided into three main categories: the ones that are targeting individuals, the ones that are targeted, so individuals in general, whether they are, job seekers, students, learners, lifelong learners, employees, job seekers. The other categories is targeting, professionals in education and training. And the other category is targeting organizations per se. And today I'm going to focus on different aspects. And the first one would be the citizens' digital competence. So here I'm going to give you a brief overview, conscious of time, that we can definitely focus on and develop further, which is the DigComp 2.2, which is the digital competence framework for citizens in Europe. So this framework has, as you can see on your screen, 5 main competence areas that are information and data literacy, communication and collaboration, digital content creation, safety, and problem solving. Under those 5 key areas that you also heard in the definition that I shared with you earlier on, there are 21 specific competencies that have been described and defined. And for each of them, 8 specific proficiency levels. So depending on you as an individual, you are going to be able to do some specific descriptions of those competencies, and it will help, assessing and telling you where you are, located around those proficiency levels. And it would describe for each of those competencies and proficiency level, the knowledge, skills, and attitudes that you are able to, or that you have developed yourself. And of course, it also gives you or shares some use cases, so that whenever the citizen and the individual is going through this framework, he or she are able to really look into some specific situations where they are able or not, or comfortable or not, to do the statements that are being shared. So just to give you a quick example here, that's a screenshot from the competence area 1, which is information and data literacy. And under this main area, the competence that is being focused on is evaluating data, information, and digital content. And you can see those 8 proficiency levels here. And it's really like at a basic level and with guidance, I can detect the credibility and reliability of common sources of data, information, and their digital content. So being at a very foundational level, I am able to do this, or I am able to do that. So it's a series of statements that are proposed and offered to the user, and depending on what the user feels, more or less comfortable in doing, that will help him or her understanding what type of a level she or he has on those type of knowledge, skills, and attitude, and also what type of situations or scenario they would be able to be put into. So here you can see that you have examples of those knowledge, skills, and attitudes that are being proposed, and also some use cases, scenario, situations in which those can be applied to. So that's really precisely defined and described, if I may, to enable a good understanding of what we are talking about and assessment of whoever is taking, this evaluation, to be able to see where, this person is situated. Now, based on this framework, the European Union also developed some tools for self-reflection. And they first developed a self-reflection item bank of 82 self-assessment questions that can be used to either be taken as such or develop some specific online tools for users to take. And I've put here the example of one online tool that is being quite largely used, which is called My Digi Skills. And it uses the 82 statements I was referring to before into a 20-minute test to take, where citizens, individuals can self-reflect and identify those gaps that they might be facing, and also pathways that enable them to bridge those gaps. So that's the DigComp 2.2, this framework for citizens to be digitally competent. So you have the framework, and you also have related tools that enable citizens, to evaluate where they are in the digital competence. Now, allow me to give you a different perspective on educational organizations' digital capacity. So technical vocational education and training, education in general, has to undertake, their own digital transformation. And it's not only, being able to let's say, teach those skills that are needed in the digital economy and society, but also transform at a system level the way they are going to be, organizing internally, changing their processes, and also design and deliver those new curricula. So here I'm going to present again a competence framework that was developed in the EU, which is called the DigComp.org, which is a framework for digitally competent educational organizations. So again, I give you a snapshot of the different key areas that I hope you can see on your screen, but I may just flag them quickly, which are leadership and governance practices, teaching and learning practices, professional development, assessment practices, content and curricula, collaboration and networking, infrastructure, and there is room for sector-specific type of competencies and areas. So really the idea is to, for educational organization to be able to, as I said, plan for change and for transition and transformation in the digital era, not only on pedagogical aspect, but also on technological and organizational dimensions. So I said you have 7 key areas that have been defined with 15 cross-cutting sub-elements and not less than 74 descriptors that have been designed. And it is critical to see, and you can see it on screen, that all those elements and areas are interrelated and have dependence upon each other. So exactly as for individuals and for citizens, the framework in itself is a basis, but we need some kind of a tool to be able to assess where we are, where we stand on those competencies, on those areas that have been described and defined. For educational organizations, the European Union has developed what is called SELFIE, which is a tool to help educational organizations identify their strengths and weaknesses and where they stand in terms of those 8 main areas of digital education. So really the idea, and you can see on your screen, is to adapt the way the organization is currently organized to be able to be thriving in the digital era. So this tool is interesting because it's customizable, and you can definitely adapt, the questionnaires and the different areas that I've presented also in the framework to a specific, TVET center or school or any environment, and based on the responses of the different staff members, you can collect views and experiences, discuss the results out of this tool that they've been using, and plan for change and improvement. Of course, the idea is to monitor progress, to monitor change, and you can go back and reassess from time to time. As we said, digital competence is dynamic and fast evolving. So it might not be a one-shot type of exercise, but this type of tool can be used and reused if needs be. So here you can briefly see the different areas that the SELFIE tool is covering: leadership aspects, collaboration and networking, the infrastructure, the equipment, the devices, continuous professional development, how the institution or the center or the school is positioning itself on it, pedagogy, support and resources, but also implementation in the classroom, anything that has to do with assessment practices, and of course, the learner, the student digital competence. And here I've just put a screenshot on what a selfie report can look like, and how you can, leverage results from this type of report. Just so you know, there was a selfie tool that was adapted specifically for work-based learning. So in the selfie tool itself, you have the possibility to declare if you are, for example, a learning and development department who is willing to do the test and so on. And there's the possibility for TVET institutions or schools or centers and companies to take the test with a dedicated module on selfie for work-based learning. So it really is a tool which is critical to make the most out of, digital technology, what it brings on the table for teaching, learning, and training. Now allow me, and again, sorry, because this is, broad overview. The idea is to introduce them to you, and of course, we can deep dive. The last one that I wanted to deep dive on is the framework, which is specifically adapted to instructors, teachers, and trainers' digital competence. So it's called the DigComp Edu, and it's the digital competence framework for educators. So here again, 6 key areas have been described that you can see here: professional engagement, digital resources, teaching and learning, assessment, empowering learner, and facilitating learners' digital competence. So those key areas have been defined, and under them, 22 specific competencies have been described. And for each of them, 6 proficiency levels are being defined as well, together with, again, the use cases which help, educators be more comfortable with the type of situations they can be faced with. You can see here, and I might not have time to deep dive on this, but the different proficiency levels, from a newcomer, someone who needs, 101 type of introductory aspects on the digital competence, to the explorer, someone who is, willing to know more and explore a bit more, to the integrator who is going to make use of it, the expert who is going to be able to transfer knowledge as well, the leader, and then the pioneer who is going to, be willing to innovate because he's more comfortable with the technology. And for each of them, under each of the proficiency level, there will be a descriptive role and, as I said, examples of situations for each of the areas. Here you can see exactly as I showed you for citizens, for each of those proficiency level, some statements that would enable educators to understand what they are comfortable with doing and what they might be less comfortable with doing. So, for example, making little use of the internet. And can you still hear me?
Yes, we do.
Okay. And for example, a proficiency statement that would say, I only rarely, if at all, use the internet to find resources for teaching and learning. So really, it's very concrete type of statements that enable educators, instructors, trainers to locate themselves in this scale. Exactly has the selfie tool for educational organizations. The EU also developed a selfie for teachers tool. And you can see here the different areas that are being covered. which is again a self-reflection tool to understand where they are in terms of, you know, empowering learners, teaching and learning, assessment, and so on. So 32 items in total, and it brings an automated report on those current capabilities, as well as suggestions to improve and enhance their capabilities and competencies. It will, of course, identify those strengths and gaps and enable them to design their learning pathways, again, to improve and enhance their competencies. There's also the possibility, just so you know, to have a certificate out of this tool and a digital badge for teachers to be able to, you know, show and give visibility on their competencies. Just so you know, it was initially designed for primary and secondary education teachers, but it really is something that is adaptable to some specific cases and usage as well. Just to give a brief overview on other existing tools, because when we are trying to define what a digital talent roadmap or map, it's always good to also, you know, as I said, open minds, open doors. So I wanted to give you a bit of inspirations as well, and possible combinations with other tools or frameworks that exist. So still in the EU landscape, just to let you know that the European Union also developed personal, social, and learning to learn key competence framework, which is called the LifeComp, that you can see here on the left. In the middle, you can see the Green Comp. We are more and more facing these dual green and digital transitions. So the Green Comp is the European Sustainability Competence Framework. And within any framework that you'd like to be designing, the sustainability aspect is, to me, something that you should be considering as well. So I wanted to bring that to your attention, as those type of framework could also be combined with others. And the EntreComp, which is the European Entrepreneurship Competence Framework. So again, some areas have been described, defined to help in entrepreneurship situations or status. I'm here presenting also briefly the ILO Global Framework on Core Skills for Life and Work in the 21st Century. So it includes those basic digital skills and basic green skills as well. And again, this type of framework can be combined with a more digital oriented one. I also wanted to give an example, and others exist, of a framework dedicated to IT professions. So that's the European ECF, so e-competence framework, that I wanted to bring to your attention here, which covers 41 competencies on the information and communication technology workplace, with 30 ICT role profiles that have been defined. Again, to give a common language for ICT professionals, for entrepreneurs in the IT area, and HR specialists on the competencies, the skills, knowledge, and proficiency levels around those roles. So it's critical, and it's being used a lot by HR teams, IT departments, qualification and certification stakeholders, IT professionals, of course, but also policy makers. And it's something that should be looked at to be combined with other frameworks, as I said, as the core one, or the DigComp, or for the European case, the European qualification framework. Just a brief overview on the different dimensions that are being covered. So the processes, the e-competencies for those roles, the proficiency levels, and the examples of knowledge and skills related to those roles and professions. Just a brief screenshot that I've put here that shows that it's, again, very much detailed in terms of the information that is being covered. And again, the idea of a framework is something, but the important thing is to also enable a more interactive approach. And the e-competence framework also has developed an interactive tool, which is called the Explorer, that enables to look into, you know, the different proficiency levels for a specific occupation or role in the IT sector, on the IT area, the possibility to have details on the mission, the different deliverables, the areas of work, and of course, the different competencies for each of them that are required. Again, the idea is to have this common language that we are all referring to. And the last one that I wanted to share is this DQ framework, which has been developed by a coalition for digital intelligence, which is more of a global tool on to give a global standards for digital for digital competence and digital readiness. Under those 8 critical areas of digital life that you can see here: digital identity, rights, literacy, communication, emotional intelligence, security, safety, and digital use. And under those critical areas, 24 digital competencies have been defined under 3 levels, which are citizenship, creativity, and competitiveness. So it's another way of looking at things, but I thought it would be interesting for you also to discover this one. And it also defines 12 future readiness skills. And here you can see through those 3 levels that I've talked about: digital citizenship, creativity, and competitiveness, all the different areas of digital competence. And for each of them, you can there's some kind of a flip card that you can look into, and different competencies are being defined and described, and you can look at them and see how you are being positioned to. A lot of information I've shared in not that much amount of time, so sorry for that. I've put here for your reference and for forthcoming use the links to all of those frameworks that I've been through, and of course I want to thank you very much, and yeah, looking forward to discussing further with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Karim. It was very informative and comprehensive presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, after learning about the European Digital Competency Framework for citizens and educators, let's have a discussion with our speakers. Those who wish to ask questions may turn on your raise hand icon, and you may ask questions when names are called, or you may also type in questions in the chat box. You can also send in questions in Bahasa, and technologist Dr. Nora Osman will assist with the translation. Kindly ensure that the questions are short and brief. Thank you. Okay, I think while waiting for the questions to come in, I'm interested to know on, given the dynamic nature of digital technology, how does this framework accommodate such rapid changes? Karim. Sorry, can you hear me, Ms. Karim?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah, sure. So first, the way the frameworks have been designed is really flexible. So, I mean, in terms of how they've been structured, there's the possibility, you know, to add different competencies. And as you may have seen, the Digital Competence Framework for Citizens, for example, already he's at the 2.2 version. So there was already, you know, some adjustments and updates that were made. And the Joint Research Center at the European Union is really working, you know, on a regular basis on updating this. So there is really flexibility on this. Now, the other interesting aspect on the fact that it's flexible is that it can be customized. So whenever a specific, and I'm sure we'll hear about Vicky Liogier later on, but as soon as a specific country or an the educational organization, so really depending on which tool we are talking about, is willing to use it, it's first, free of use. You can have access to the questionnaire. There's a lot of guidance on how to use and adapt those tools to specific circumstances, needs, etc. So really, as soon as you've decided that this could be a basis on which you could develop, your own, it's very easy to customize. Now, when it comes to the competencies themselves and which have been identified to date, up to today, there's of course the need to make sure that we are always on the lookout and studying the in-demand skills. So, for example, when using the approaches on looking at, the demand for some specific skills in a specific sector, we should definitely make sure that these approaches are recurring and that, as I said earlier, that it's not a one-shot type of undertaking. But that also means that we need resources to do so and allocate time to do so, because such frameworks, are strong tools, but only if they are still adapted to the labor market needs and to the economy, digital economy and society needs. So yeah, again, adapting such a tool requires updating it and therefore resources that you need to be anticipating. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you. Do you have any questions come from the floor, Dr. Nora?
So far, there's no question.
Okay.
So I have question.
So, ada one soalan from Dr. Akiko, one question from Dr.
Sabar? Sabar?
Yes, Dr. Akiko.
Okay, yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I just wanted to give a participant more time to come up with the questions and also taking the opportunity to ask a question to my own colleague, Karin. So thank you so much. It's very comprehensive, and then, it's great that I learned a lot new things from your presentation. There's two things I wanted to ask. Especially, first one is in relation to a Digicom org for digitally competent education organization. And then you made a reference to 7 key areas. And then when I looked at the European digital competence framework, I tend to get a little bit overwhelmed because it's so comprehensive, right? So I'm just wondering, and then it's very difficult for sometimes some countries who are thinking of developing digital framework. It's difficult to develop such a comprehensive framework overnight, addressing 7 areas at the same time. So I'm just wondering whether you have an insight as to, is there something that a minimum or some first block or area that the country should look at, and then gradually to expand the increasing, and then over time address the 7 area? Or is it this is not really a recommendable approach? That's the one question I wanted to ask. And then the second one is that just the utilization of this digital framework for European Union. In your view, do you get the sense that this reference framework is indeed providing a basis for many countries in the European Union to develop their own national digital framework? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your questions, Akiko. So regarding this phased approach that you were referring to, yes, I think that there would be two sides in my answer. The first one is, I think it is important to keep this, broad approach and understanding of all those areas that are being covered. So I would say that having this, integrated type of approach where you're looking at all of the areas is something that is important. Now, when it comes to implementing, and I think that this is what you were referring, like it's a bit, scaring to have to look at all those areas with a lot of depth in all of them and all those proficiency levels. So I would say that in any case, yes, an implementation in a phased or step-by-step approach, depending on the priorities of the country or depending on the priorities of a specific educational, organization, for example, definitely makes sense. Also because depending on maybe the assessment that they will go through initially, they will find out that maybe, not all of the digital competencies are necessary, maybe not, or that are not, importantly necessary, or maybe in terms of the competencies to be developed, there will be a priority among them. So I would say that the broad vision and the integrated approach, I think, in terms of visibility and awareness of everything that needs to be covered is key. But in terms of more operational implementation approach, I would say that definitely prioritizing, also based on some results, based on those reports that are available when you go through the assessment, would definitely make sense. Just because, as I said, resources are needed, time is needed, so not everything can be taken overnight. Regarding your second question on usage, yes, and I would be tempted, conscious of time, to maybe share with you some links to use cases from different countries in Europe. But yes, they are largely used, whether that be the citizens, self-reflection tools that exist and that are available on job portals, on career guidance portals, on even in companies. Some of them are using the My Digi Skills in companies. Job seekers are using them. So the tools that are available for educational organizations too are used a lot, and I can share with you some examples, not only at policy making level, but also in TVET centers, for example, who are using it to be able to, undertake their own transformation and make sure that they are making the most out of technologies in their own institutions. So yes, they are largely used because it really answers a need for common language, common definition, common standards, to make sure that we are all, whether that be employers, job seekers, employees, TVET institutions, or speaking the same language, have the same references and standards. I definitely can share along some figures, like numbers of users in different European countries, and some specific use cases if you'd like to look at, and that can also nurture the reflection. I hope it helps, Akiko.
Thank you, Ms. Karim. I think due to limited time, we'll take one question from the chat box. There's a question from Mr. Nur Hisham from Atek Batu Pahat. He's asking what motivational factor can be the driving approach to accelerate digital competency among instructors?
That's a good question, motivation. Because it means instructors need to, they see their roles changing. the tools they need to use changing. So I would say that one of the main motivational factor is to engage them, and is to make sure they understand what they can make out of those technologies. If you say, okay, yeah, let's train you on this tool so that you can deliver your courses online, or you need to be able to, know how to curate digital content, and that's it. I think the key for any, engagement is understanding what you can make out of, technologies, whether that be to, maximize efficiency, to be able to, have more digitally competent students, to be able to save time at some point, because the initial time they need to invest might be, more important initially, but really is to, engage them in the transformation, make them actors of this transformation, and make sure that they understand what they can, make out of these technologies that are now available. So I would say, in a nutshell, that these are the key main factors to engage and motivate them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Karin. I think due to limited time, I think that's all we have for the question and answering session. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, let's proceed. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, let's proceed with the second presentation. Please allow me to share a brief background of our presenter. Ms. Vicky is French and has been living in England since 1987. She initially worked as a freelance illustrator and taught graphic design and illustration at South Thames College. In 1993, Vicky acquired her first Apple Mac, vacuum tablet, color printer, Adobe Suite, and scanner, as she could foresee the impact of such technology on the creative industries and education. From then on, she pursued her interest in exploring and embedding digital literacy and capability into her life and course delivery. In 2008, as a keen technology early adopter, Ms. Vicky decided to refocus her career on change management. In 2018, she was recognized as one of the UK EdTech 50, celebration of the people, products, and projects shaping the education and technology sector across the UK. Since the appointment at the Education and Training Foundation, Vicky has been boosting the strength and capability of further education and training VET profession in harnessing learning and teaching technologies, developing digital skills, and redefining pedagogic approaches. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Vicky Liu Xie to share with us on the Digital Teaching Professional Framework, an enhanced digital teaching platform in the United Kingdom.
Thank you very much, Sasha, for introducing me, and salam, everybody. So let me share my screen. Here we go. I have shared in the chat the link to this Jamboard, as well as a link to the Digital Teaching Professional Framework. So if there are any tweeters amongst you, you've got my handle, which is Vicky Liu Xie. You can see it here, and you can see the Education and Training Foundation handle as well. And if you follow us on Twitter, then we can continue this conversation quite easily post-session. So I'm going to talk to you about the Digital Teaching Professional Framework and the Enhanced Digital Teaching Platform. But before I start, I wanted to introduce you to the Education and Training Foundation, for whom I work. And we are the expert body for professional development and standards in further education and training in England, which is the vocational teaching sector. And our role is to work with teachers, trainers, leaders, governors, and employers, and to support government policies and meet their needs. And we believe that the key to improve education and training is to support them in delivering excellence. So we do this in a number of ways. And the 3 points to my presentation today is going to be about the digital teaching professional framework, then how it does underpin the enhanced digital teaching platform, and then we will conclude and have time for some questions. So, should digital teaching professional framework, why develop a digital teaching professional framework? Well, the initiative was implemented in response to the findings of the National Training Needs Analysis that we carried out in 2017, which showed that 59% of training providers urgently needed training on how to use technologies and other new technologies for teaching and learning. And in 2018, we developed a position review, which looked at understanding the barriers and enablers to use technology in teaching and training. And that also informed the design of this project. So the framework aims at creating a shared understanding of pedagogic digital capability in the education sector, and to provide educators with a clear developmental pathway that will also map their level of competency while supporting them in developing further. And like Karin just told us, I mean, you can see how many different frameworks there are. And it's so important to have that common understanding. So the aim of this work is really to improve the capability of practitioners in the vocational sector to use digital technology to enhance the quality of teaching, learning, and assessment. None of the existing framework at the time had gained much traction in the education sector, and the new framework really aimed to be very different in 3 different ways. First of all, by focusing on teaching and learning rather than simply applying technical skills. So we removed that sort of technophobia element by focusing on language of teachers and educators. Secondly, by providing a comprehensive suite of online bite-sized training modules, which can be accessed just in time from anywhere and any device. And thirdly, with the development of a badged recognition and reward structure. Someone was asking about motivation. We believe that a badging and digital credential is a way to recognize our commitment to our self-development and also really motivate us on measuring our progress. So the aim is not so much to measure teachers' digital skills, but instead to raise their awareness and understanding of how to embed learning technologies in their practice. And of course, it is about improving the learning experience of the learners and their employability outcomes. Now, the framework responds to the further education and training sector needs and has been developed in collaboration with teachers, trainers, assessors, and leaders to ensure that it is relevant and adds value to their role. And our development really adopted a user-centered design process with 5 levels of stakeholders consultations. First of all, we had an advisory group where each of the sector associations was represented so that we could ensure that their members had a voice. We also had key informants, both academics and EdTech experts. We also ran some teachers and trainers focus groups to collect qualitative data and a survey to facilitate a broader quantitative consultation. Let me show you the framework. So it was a collaboration with JISC and we worked in partnership. You can see that we've got 7 competencies. It has been structured on the teacher's journey, which is about planning and then going all the way to self-development. However, although it is a structure in a linear manner, it's not meant to be approached in a linear way. It's very much an aspirational framework. You go in as you self-identify a training needs, and you go in just in time to fulfill that need. Oh, someone deleted. Oh. So could you please not interact with the presentation? Thank you. Okay, so I'll go here so you can see better on this screen here.
Okay,
So-
just an interruption for you. Okay, mohon peserta untuk tidak mengganggu di Jamboard yang digunakan oleh peserta, oleh penceramah kerana ada yang dah ter-delete slide penceramah. I'm repeating it in English. Please do not disturb the slide presentation in the Jamboard because it interferes with the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It is meant to be an interactive presentation, so you can add your comments on the last slide, and which is why I'm using a Jamboard. Also because I'm going to show you the platform directly. So the framework has 7 competencies, as I said, across 3 stages of performance. The blue stage that you can see right here at the bottom is an exploring stage, and it's very much for those of us who don't know anything about EdTech. The second stage is green, and it is about adopting, and it's for those of us, and probably since COVID-19, aimed at most of us who have already embedded some EdTech in our practice. And then the last stage is very much about leading. It's about those of us who are supporting others, and those of us who are able to critique what EdTech may be more suited for a given practice. When I talk about EdTech, I mean education technologies. Now, I'll move on from this slide. The framework was built from 3 key elements. First of all, we've got some professional standards that we hold on the behalf of the further education sector, and we've got 20 professional standards. So it's mapped on our standard. It's also built from the 6 elements of digital capabilities from JISC, which is very focused on digital skills. And finally, it's obviously, it's inspired by the DigComp Edu that Karine just talked to us about. It's very much the European Commission framework, which is far more complex. The framework is actually focused on the full education spectrum of educators, from primary all the way to higher education. And we really wanted to simplify the framework to really focus on vocational trainers and teachers. So this is what we did. Now, the framework can be approached in 4 different ways. First of all, you can go into it and you're going to look at it just in time as a butterfly, and you can think, oh, I need something about accessibility. I'll just go into accessibility, and I can choose in there what it is that I would like to complete. Okay, then you can approach the framework also. So you can approach it just in time as you identify a self-development need. You can approach it in an horizontal manner, which is going to be progressing across the 7 competencies in a particular stage of performance. So if I was going to go into exploring, then I would be able to see all the modules which are mapped on the DTPF at that particular level. Alternatively, I can progress through it in a vertical manner, where I would do all the modules across exploring, adopting, and leading within a specific competency. And finally, you can approach it as a kind of snake and ladder, where you can approach it through a theme, where you would have a narrative progression pathway. So if you want to develop collaborative skills between teachers and learners, between learners, then you're going to do a snake and ladder progression across the different sort of competencies and stages of performance. But let's go back to our Jamboard for a minute. So the digital teaching professional framework is really the first block of a far wider project. And it is not just a framework that you pin on a wall and you consult. You actually are going to see, and I've shown it to you already a little bit, it is fully interactive. It is underpinned by 175 micro learning modules. Now, we've got on the link I've shared in the chat, you will be able to see that we've got a link to the framework itself, and you can see here that all the competencies are actually cross-referenced within. So you've got the EU DIGE Comp Edu cross-referencing within our framework. And the framework is quite exhaustive with a number of activities and competency statement. And then if you go right at the bottom in the appendices, you can see that we are putting our references, and we also refer to the SAMR model. So if you're not familiar with the SAMR model, it's a good place to start, because it's a very simple model which helps you focus on your learning activities and how you can literally substitute, augment, modify, and redefine your learning activities through new technologies. And in order to help you doing that, we've actually created exemplars across the the 7 competencies to give you examples of how to do that. So you've got the link in the chat, and I recommend you to do that. So now I'm going to move on to why this particular framework is different. Well, it is different because we are focusing on teaching and learning rather than simply applying digital skills. We've developed it in close consultation with the sector by adopting a user-centered design process, as I've just mentioned, and it is a dynamic framework. So it's not just pinned on the wall. As I said, it has come live with the enhanced digital teaching platform, and it was launched at BETT in January 2019. So let me tell you a little bit about the enhanced digital teaching platform. It was designed to remove barriers to engagement. It is a mobile-first platform, so you can access it from any device, and it will be responsive and adaptive. You don't need to sign up. It's totally free to access. I've mentioned, again, the user-centered design process, but we've adopted it across the board, not just to develop the digital teaching professional framework, but also to develop all the learning within it. And you'll see that we've actually embedded exemplars within each of the modules on how teachers and trainers within the vocational area are embedding different approaches with EdTech. As I said early on, we looked at barriers and enablers for professional development of colleagues in the vocational area, and time is a major barrier. We don't have time to actually learn new things, and that's why we've adopted bite-sized learning modules. They are pedagogy focused. We talk the language of educators for educators, and we've got very strong inclusive ethos. and accessibility ethos as well. And you will see that the platform is 100% accessible to all. And if I go onto the platform now, then you will see right at the bottom of this platform our accessibility statement, and it will tell you everything you need to know about assistive technologies and how you can use reading technologies and so on if need be. Then we've mentioned digital credentials. So we've built achievement badges to recognize a commitment to self-development, as well as our progress and mapping our progress. And those achievements are across the 3 stages of performance: exploring, adopting, and leading, that we've simplified from the DISH Campédu, which had 6 levels of performance. So we've really tried to refocus. And finally, we're really building communities of practice, and I'll show you that in a minute. So the enhanced digital teaching platform is now live and hosts 3 key items. First of all, the EdTech CPD program that I've just mentioned, and our EdTech program is made up of 175 micro-learning modules, which are underpinned by the framework. The second program we host is what we call the Essential Digital Skills CPD program, aimed at educators again, but it's really focusing on those essential digital skills that we need to live, work, and study in a digital society. And finally, in the back end, we've got a management dashboard, which is aimed at supporting providers with the tools that they need in order to accelerate their digital learning strategy and build a strong digital capability within their organization. Ah, I've got a slide missing again. I'll just
Sorry, Vicky,
upload.
I'd just like to flag you on time that you have about 5 minutes.
Okay, in that case, I'll just move on very quickly. So this is the platform. I'm signed on, obviously, so you can see the modules here. You'll be able to access all kinds of modules within that. We also have the Essential Digital Skills program, and you can look at our framework within this area, and it's looking at the skills that we need to be able to live, work, and study in a digital society. And again, we've got communities of practice. The framework is, if we have a look here, we've got modules that support the DTPF. And this is where you're going to be able to see all our modules. I've already shown you that. I've mentioned the narrative progression pathways, and you will be able to see those here. So if you wanted to work on collaborative working, for instance, then you can download that particular guide, which is going to give you a link to 5 modules, and will be able to give you 2 modules for working teachers and learners and developing learners' collaborative skills. And then we've built reflection across everything we do. So when you go into our work, then you will be able to see that we've built reflective practices across it. And oops, sorry, let me go back here, and I'll show you our awarded practice wall, where you can engage in a pedagogic dialogue with colleagues, where you have, why? Because we know that training in itself doesn't make a difference if it doesn't change our behavior. So it's about reflecting on the impact the training has had on our practice. And you will see that we've got several practices that have been shared by colleagues, and some discussions have taken place with those colleagues in order to discuss what it is that they're doing. So we're really building that sort of network and a community of practice. So I highly recommend you to do that. And then in the back end, we've got a management dashboard aimed at providers to really build digital capability in their organization. And you can create a CPD plan very, very quickly. For you to find out more about the management dashboard, you can go on the management dashboard here, and you can watch our induction sort of video, which will tell you all the different potential. We've got several case studies as well available, and I'll share in the chat in a minute those the different case studies and links and so on that are available on our website. So I'm conscious of time, and I'll just move on and share my contact details. In the case of the management dashboard, it's totally free to access until end of December, and we're very likely to progress to extend that free subscription. Now, the Enhanced Digital Teaching Platform has been awarded 2 years in a row the EdTech 50 Award, which is one recognized as one of the best EdTech product in the UK. And it has also been recognized as a promising practice by UNESCO in its latest case study. So it's all in one sort of package, going through the framework, a common language, moving into a CPD plan, and helping organization in really focusing on those elements which are really key to the culture or the strategy and the vision and mission of the organization. So it's an all-in-one sort of offer, and there's no point in reinventing the wheel. We are constantly listening to feedback from our users, and we've got more than 27,000 feedback that we constantly use in order to improve the quality and update the quality of our program. So thank you very much. You've got my contact details here, and you got my email, and you can follow me on Twitter, as I mentioned before, and this is where you can add your feedback if you want. You can pick up on the right-hand side, on the left-hand side, sorry, a sticky note, and I'll just say thank you for now. And you can see that my sticky note goes here. So feel free to pick one up, change the color scheme if you want, and add it. So that's it for me. Thank you very much for listening. And I'll say Terima Kasaki. Terima Kasih, sorry. I'll stop sharing as well.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Vicky, for inviting us on the framework and teaching platform in the UK. And congrats to you on the EdTech Award.
Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are now open for question and answer session. For this session, I'll invite Dr. Junichi Mori to co-moderate this session with me.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe I just want to say thank you very much for Vicky first. Again, she accepted to join this seminar in a very short notice. We really appreciate. So probably you received many questions, but just to warm up, can I ask only one question? I understand that you have adopted the European framework, and then because you wanted to make it more focused, and then make it for the Tibet teachers. And then you mentioned about the dynamic framework. I'm very curious about what do you really mean by dynamic? And then how do you make your framework dynamic? Is that because you said about the interaction, but is that because the interaction with the teachers or industry, or how do you make it dynamic? Can I ask a question?
Okay, what I mean by dynamic is that it's not just a framework that you pin on a wall that you're going to refer to as and when. it's actually interactive. So when you click, as I was showing you, when you click on let me go back in. Oops, no. Here we go. I'm going to share my screen just for a sec. So it's very much about when you go onto the framework, you can actually see that the framework is underpinned by by 175 micro-learning modules. So if what you want to learn is about teaching in a fully online context, then you can go here and you're going to be able to complete a module which is going to be about teaching in an online context. And you can see here that we're looking at asynchronous teaching and learning. And you will be able to see what other practitioners have shared when they've been inspired by this particular module and how they've embedded the training in their practice. And then you can look at what people have been saying about that particular module and how it has helped them. And all this feedback and community is quite important. And you can follow practitioners. So by clicking here, you can follow a specific practitioner and you can engage in a pedagogic dialogue. So that's what I mean by dynamic. Does it make sense?
Definitely.
Okay, I hear the word like differently from Panjunaya. Okay, so
I think I have a question from one of the participants. The question is like the activity institutions, it's more on skills, practical. Then how do you make it digitally in teaching? How do you teach skills digitally?
How do you incorporate the digital technology in teaching, especially on the hands-on?
Yeah, so this is exactly what the digital teaching professional framework is about. As I said, it doesn't teach you digital skills per se. So for instance, if you talk about YouTube, you're not going to learn how to do YouTube because YouTube has a proprietary training and tutorials which are up to date. What it's going to teach you is going to show you how you could use YouTube as a pedagogic tool within your delivery.
So it's
Does
just
it make
giving
sense?
you, giving you an options of methods that you can use to enhance your teaching better.
Yeah, so for instance, I don't know if you're familiar with Padlet. Padlet is a tool which is a collaborative tool, or Jamboard that I've been using, for instance. It's about how do you embed engagement within the learning activity and really build some kind of collaboration. And a Padlet would be a great tool to do that. So we'll talk about how teachers are using Padlet within their training. However, we won't tell you how to create a Padlet because you can learn that from Padlet itself. And if I show you, for instance, I'll go back if that's okay with you. So I'll share my, let me share my screen again. So when you have a look at a module, we will give you within a module a range of further resources. So each module can be completed in about 5 minutes, 5 to 6 minutes in terms of content. So if I was to relaunch my module here, you can see it's a green module, so it's adopting. You've got an animation, which is about 3 minutes long. You've got a transcript. You've got a learning activity, which is going to look at reinforcing the learning. And then you've got a space where you can reflect and you can download. You've got a summary activities, which are the key points of the learning activity. And then you've got further resources. Now, obviously, if you dig into those further learning resources, it's going to take you more than 5 minutes. So you can stretch and challenge and really deep in if you want. And this is what we would do in order, if we introduce, for instance, Padlet, then we would give you the link to learn how to use Padlet. But there's no point in us developing that training because Padlet tomorrow, the interface will look completely different and Padlet will be far better at keeping up to date with their own proprietary software.
Right.
Oh, sorry, Vicky, can I just expand upon the question? Actually, it's basically they want to know how can they use digital teaching technologies.
How can you use digital teaching technologies? I'm not sure I understand the question. Hello? Can you hear me? Hello?
We can
Hello.
hear you.
So basically, they in a lot of the Tibet instructors are doing hands-on training. So they want to know
Yeah.
how can they incorporate like digital approaches to their teaching with respect to hands-on training. Let's say, for example, I teach how to fix a car, the engine. So how can they incorporate these kind of like digital tools in the hands-on training aspect?
Basically, you're going to choose a specific tool which is fit to the learning activity. So for instance, you could very well, if you do a demonstration for learners on how to change a tire, since we're talking about the motor vehicle industry, then you can ask the learner to film you while you're changing that tire as a kind of example, then record that so the learner can revisit that activity and learn. Equally, you can ask learners to film each other while they're doing this activity so that they can evidence the skill that they have acquired and build it into a digital CV, for instance, and sharing that digital CV on a professional profile on LinkedIn and so on. So you can see how you can expand. Do I answer your question?
Right. It becomes like tools to enhance more the teaching, to make the student can come again and again instead of only in class.
That's it. It does allow for spaced learning and revisit the learning again and again as and when they need it. So every time they're going to change a tire, they can have that demonstration next to them. Now, QR codes would be very practical. You could display some QR codes so the learners can scan the QR code with their mobile phone. And then while they're doing the activity, they can look at their teacher demonstrating it.
So it's more student-centered rather than depends on the instructor.
Yes, I think because of it, of new technologies and the internet, we've moved from delivering content and information to teaching and delivering information to learning and creating learning opportunities with learners. So the role of the teacher is more the role of a coach and a facilitator. So I think that element is quite essential with EdTech. It's about engaging learners in taking ownership of their their development. So that's why in the COVID and the lockdown sort of area, we really understood, and teachers maybe didn't understand it so much before, the synchronous and asynchronous activities. So there's no point in delivering knowledge, information and content and leave the learners passive. It's really important to deliver that content prior to the session. So a flipped classroom model, for instance, and then have the learners sort of discussing that sort of learning content in class together, so that they and hands-on activities so that they can apply the knowledge. So a higher level learning activity.
Thank you very much, Vicky. I think we are running out of time, so we have to end the Q&A session. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope today's event has able to provide some insights to all of us, especially on the digital competencies and its application, so that it can assist us in strengthening and development of digital skills for skills in training instructors in Malaysia. Thank you, distinguished speakers, for sharing your expertise and experiences with us and engaging all of us in such fruitful, constructive, and open exchanges throughout the session. To all audience, thank you for your attention and participation. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the final agenda for today. Therefore, I would like to invite Dr. Junichi Mori, Chief Technical Advisor, Skills for Prosperity Program in Malaysia, ILO, to deliver his closing remarks.
Thank you very much. Before I make a closing remarks, I wonder if Ori from JTM want to say a few words.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for a very, I would say, interesting session. It was very interactive. I was attracted by some of the key presentation, key issues that has been raised in the presentation earlier on, talking about how we should remove barriers to engagement, and that in the platforms that we develop for our students, it should be mobile friendly, it should be user-centric, bite-sized learning modules, and it has to be pedagogy focused. And those are the issues I think are extremely interesting. And I'm sure that it would have a profound impact on how we look at digital platform, to develop our digital platform to learn vocational training in the future. I thank you both our speakers, all our speakers, as a matter of fact, for the insights that they have provided. And I will not take this much session any further. Once again, I would like to say thank you to all of you who are involved here. Thank you once again for all those important questions that you have posed. I think those have made our session here more interactive and more lively. And I would like to hand it over to Mr. Mori for his closing remarks. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Shakib, for the very concrete closing remarks. So again, terima kasih banyak for all. I think it's already 5:30. Maybe I should say selamat malam. Not yet. Belum lagi selamat malam. Sorry. First of all, thank you very much for the very interesting presentation from the two speakers. And then my colleague Karin. Karin made a very I think she did a great job to summarize so many frameworks, very dense information. Thank you. So if I just highlight a few points from her presentation. So in Europe, they try to develop a skills framework for digital competency by target group for the students, educator, or even like an expert. And then also, second keyword would be the self-reflection. I'm in a vocational training field. I always think about the assessment in my mind, but I think a self-reflection is quite emphasized. It's very interesting. Third characteristic is putting the examples on the framework. That is quite interesting too. And then, I think this is really, I think Akiko also mentioned, but it's a huge work to develop this competency framework on the top of the National Occupational Skills Standard. Even EU have a ESCO. So maybe I hope if we have a next session, I hope to learn like why they really need to develop it. And then that's going to be the great implication for Malaysia. And then second presentation, thank you very much, Vicky, very practical. And then I also enjoy the presentation together with the participant. I think the first point Vicky mentioned is that why they needed to develop the framework based on European framework, because they needed to simplify and then make it more focused on the Tibet teachers. Second point is a dynamic framework or maybe flexible framework with a high interaction. This is very interesting. And then maybe that's how the UK try to adapt to the changing skills needs. Third point is about the micro module. It's very interesting. I thought micro module is like, let's say like even 1 day, but the micro module, what Vicky said, is 5 to 6 minutes. It's really the new age. And then another point she mentioned, the repeated learning. So I think this is gonna be the very interesting because all the Tibet stuff and then instructor must be very busy. And then the last point is about the continuous career development platform for the instructors. Quite interesting because to retain the good instructors, it is necessary to have a continuous professional development platform. So I hope we have a chance to learn a bit more detail from Vicky for this. Then finally, I hope participants get interesting insight for the further development, digital talent development, and then also the skill development for the teachers today. But of course, I cannot suddenly make an implication for Malaysia, but I think all the participants already got some idea. So if I try to facilitate the future discussion, maybe first point is a skills framework. Of course, Malaysia already have a occupational framework, NOS, but is it necessary to have another framework, or simply we try to make existing framework more flexible? Second is a continuous professional development of the skills training or TVET teachers. Is a micro credential or micro training would be useful in Malaysia, or Malaysia have any better way? And then how to make a training more interactive? That might be something we can keep discussing. So finally, I really want to say appreciate and then say thank you for the co-host, Minister of Human Resources, particularly Manpower Department. Thank you very much, Mr. Shakib. You stayed for 2 hours session, even though you're very busy. And then thank you very much, Mr. Matt, Dr. Zaki, leading the digital talent development framework, skills framework in Ministry of Human Resources. And then thank you very much for all the participants today. And then finally, thank you very much for the working committee today, consists of the JTM and then ILO colleague and then all the MOHR staff from other departments. So I hope this is still the starting point of our cooperation for the digital talent development. So there will be the subsequent activities. So I hope many of you still participate in the activity. Terima kasih banyak. Sampai jumpa lagi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I would like to invite Mr. Shakib to hand over some souvenirs to Dr. Grimsmani. Taking the picture.
Okay, come, we have something for you. Oh. So I say this is our token of appreciation.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Very much.
Hi. Hi. Mau ikat. Hey.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
And gentlemen, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Therefore, let's us end the seminar with a few pictures. Please turn on your camera and put on your best smile. Take a picture.
Smile with my mascot.
Please take a picture with the participants. We can sit and we can
Okay.
share with the participants.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
All right. So Azmi, Hidayah will take over.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay. One more. And
Ni ramai sikit.
smile.
My attendance is being recorded.
We have screens to take pictures.
It's recording the attendance.
Last screen smile.
We have a raised hand.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. As a gentle reminder to all of us, do fill up the survey form. You may find the link in the chat box. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of the session. Thank you so much, everyone. I am this seminar with Wabillahi Taufiq wal Hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Have a safe journey and take care. This is Hada Ramisa signing off. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Arigato.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Oh, tak pegang dulu sikit ni. Pegang. Pegang dikit kat abang ni. Abang mandi.
Habis sudah. Ini